Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into how a few ridiculously simple ingredients and some really clever modular swaps completely revolutionized the American morning routine. We're going to look closely at the actual architecture of our mornings. How did a handful of strategic culinary choices take breakfast right out of the dining room and put it straight into our cars, our hands, and our daily lives? Well, we're about to uncover the exact ingredient combinations that changed how the entire country starts its day.
So how exactly did we get here? How did we go from traditional sit-down morning meals to the ubiquitous on-the-go breakfast sandwiches we all know today? For a long, long time, breakfast meant a plate, a fork, and the absolute necessity of a place to sit down. It was full of friction. It certainly wasn't something you could just easily grab and take with you on a busy commute. But that all shifted dramatically. And the catalyst for that massive cultural shift? It all traces back to one specific innovation that completely upended the fast food landscape.
Act 1. The sandwich that started it all. To really understand this culinary architecture, we have to jump back to the early 1970s. Before then, if you wanted anything resembling this kind of flavor profile, you were sitting down at a diner for Eggs Benedict. And let's be real, that is a notoriously difficult and delicate dish to prepare, and absolutely no one is eating that with one hand while driving. But then, in the early 1970s, the Egg McMuffin is officially born, drawing direct inspiration from that sophisticated dish. Fast forward to the post-1970s era, and boom, the results are profound. This single sandwich successfully established the whole concept of fast food breakfast across the entire United States. It basically proved once and for all that breakfast could be fast, convenient, and incredibly popular. The real genius here is in the physical stack of the ingredients. Let's break down the anatomy of this thing. You start with a freshly cracked egg, which gives it that authentic, homemade feel. Then you throw on the Canadian bacon for a lean, savory bite. Melt some American cheese right over the top to act as that essential creamy binder, and you house the whole shebang perfectly inside a toasted English muffin. And honestly, the English muffin is the unsung hero here. Its sturdy, toasted texture holds everything together without getting soggy. It's literally a masterpiece of simple culinary engineering. That perfectly balanced flavor profile single-handedly established the nationwide fast food breakfast habit. Act 2. The savory sausage variations. So, you've got a massive hit on your hands with the Egg McMuffin, but how do you keep growing? You don't reinvent the wheel, you just change the tires. Once that strong baseline was set, it was time to evolve, using a brilliant ingredient swap strategy. Look at the classic profile with Canadian bacon. It's balanced, slightly lean. Now swap that out for a seasoned pork sausage patty. It instantly caters directly to customers looking for something much more robust. People were actively craving that bold, savory seasoning. That single modular change transforms the entire sensory experience, from light and balanced to deeply rich and hearty. It proved that just one strategic swap could create an entirely new, deeply beloved product. We can really see this evolution clearly when we look at the progression. We start with our original, balanced build, Canadian bacon and egg. Then, the menu logically progresses to the sausage McMuffin. Here, they drop the egg entirely and rely strictly on the seasoned pork sausage and cheese, creating a richer, highly popular choice. But the true stroke of genius? That's the sausage McMuffin with egg. It builds right on top of the sausage McMuffin by simply bringing that freshly cracked egg back to the party. The resulting combination, sausage, egg, cheese, and English muffin, is a much more filling option. It takes the heartiness of the sausage and perfectly marries it with the classic, satisfying nature of the original egg build. Act 3. The Southern Biscuit Pivot.
Okay, so we've got the meats figured out. But what happens when you change the very foundation the sandwich is built upon? If the McMuffin line is completely dominating one demographic, how do you pivot to capture an entirely new cultural segment? Think about it. You have millions of people who love the toasted, slightly chewy vibe of an English muffin. But there is a massive chunk of the population whose idea of a perfect breakfast looks and feels entirely different. How do you appeal to that completely different group of breakfast customers without alienating your current diehard fans?
Well, the answer was the biscuit shift, swapping the vessel itself for a warm, buttery biscuit. This effectively brought a softer, richer texture, one heavily associated with Southern-style breakfasts, directly to the fast food window. It was an absolute masterstroke of regional marketing. Biscuits obviously have deep, deep roots as comforting, home-style food. By simply swapping out the English muffin for a biscuit, the entire identity of the sandwich shifts. It essentially weaponizes comfort food for the drive-thru, instantly appealing to customers craving that specific regional connection. And the architecture of this one is fascinatingly different. We have our warm, buttery biscuit base. But notice this. Instead of a freshly cracked egg, we now have a folded one. And instead of Canadian bacon, we've got crispy bacon. You combine that with the melted cheese and this specific anatomy, the folded egg, crispy bacon, buttery biscuit, creates a profoundly softer, much richer overall texture. It's a completely different eating experience. It was meticulously designed from the ground up to satisfy an entirely different set of textural and flavor preferences. Act 4, the fast food breakfast legacy. Let's step back for a second and look at the larger narrative we've uncovered here. We've journeyed all the way from a high-end restaurant dish inspiration to a highly calculated, customizable menu that absolutely dominates the morning commute. The legacy here isn't just about good food. It's about a brilliant system of culinary engineering. Look at this step-by-step evolutionary formula. Step 1. Invent a perfectly balanced, simple combination as your base, like the Egg McMuffin. Step 2. Swap the protein to cater to those savory, hearty cravings with seasoned sausage. And finally, Step 3. Change the bread vessel itself to a warm biscuit to capture distinct regional and textural tastes. It's honestly a masterclass in modular product design. They conquered the entire morning market through simple, strategic shifts. We've seen how swapping an English muffin for a biscuit or Canadian bacon for a sausage patty quite literally changed the habits of a nation. So, with the foundations of American fast food breakfast built entirely on these simple ingredient swaps, it leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought to chew on. As our tastes continue to shift and evolve, what unexpected flavor profile will redefine our mornings next? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the breakfast revolution. I'll catch you in the next explainer.